Hi, Anna at the Sewing Studio here, and in this video I am going to talk you through the Janome 8200QCP sewing machine. I'm going to talk you through its features and functions, show you everything that comes in the box with the machine, show you how to thread it, do some sewing, show you its capabilities, some of the different feet that it comes with, and then talk a bit about the warranty and support. Now we've split those into separate chapters, so if there's a particular section that you're interested in, feel free to head straight there. So the Janome 8200QCP is part of Janome's long arm range of sewing machines, and that's because it's got a massive 11 inches of space to the right of the needle. And that's really handy for sewing larger projects, you know, big quilts, bulky coats, things like that. It's also got quite a lot of LED lights on it, so it's all lit up all the way along so that you can see everything that you're doing very clearly. This machine comes with 170 different stitch options, and those are very handily detailed just inside the lid for you. There's a mix of utility stitches, decorative stitches, satin stitches, stretch stitches, every stitches. There's also alphabet on there as well, both uppercase, lowercase, some numbers, some symbols, European letters. You'll find 10 different styles of buttonholes, and they're a one-step buttonhole, so nice and easy to do. And these stitches are all easily selected via the LCD screen down here, and I'll show you more of how to do that when we get to the sewing section. You can also change the width and the length of the stitches, and the maximum width on here is 9mm and the maximum length is 5mm. You can also elongate the satin stitches. So satin stitches are quite shapely and quite dense, and yes, we can alter the length and the width, but sometimes we then end up distorting the shape and the density of the stitch. So with the elongation button, you can make them 5 times bigger than their original size and still keep the shape and the density. It also has a twin needle setting so that you can do anything with a double needle, and a mirror stitch, so the decorative stitches you can switch them the opposite way around. And there's a memory function, so when you come to using something like the fonts, you can set a sequence of letters to type a name or a sentence or something like that, and you can also program the stitch programs in there, so you could do, I don't know, a couple of hearts and a name and then a couple of hearts, whatever your heart desires really. So it's a computerized machine, so you have the choice. It comes with a foot pedal. You don't have to use the foot pedal to operate the machine because it has a start-stop button. It also has speed control, so you've got a slow, medium and high, and top speed on this machine is a whopping 1,000 stitches per minute. But you can control that nice and easily with that slider. You've also got your reverse stitch, your locking stitch, your needle up, needle down, and an automatic thread cutter, and there's also a little manual one on the side here that's quite handy. The presser foot has an extra high lift, so you can lift that up for any kind of bulky items to get them in underneath, and you can adjust the pressure that is applied to the presser foot. This machine has Janome's 7-piece feed drive system, which is much more substantial than a lot of others that you'll find. And it aids in consistent feeding of the fabric to get really nice results. Now this machine also comes with Janome's even feed technology, which is a version of their walking foot system. So it comes with a foot like this, but this piece slots into the back of the machine, so it's driven by the motor of the machine, which gives much better results. Again, I will demonstrate that to you when we get to the sewing section. It's got a built-in needle threader and a drop-in bobbin with the easy set, so it's nice and easy to load, and you don't need to drop the bobbin thread, although you can if you want to. It comes with this stitch plate and another stitch plate option as well. And they're very easy to change. So if I just lift the presser foot up, it's just a lever here, and you can see it just pops up. So there's no screws or anything to undo. You can just take that out, and then you've got access to everything that you need to maintain the machine and clean it, but also switch between the 2 plates. I will talk about the 2 plates a bit further on. So now I've taken the accessory tray off, you can see that there's a free arm there for sewing any cuffs or hems or anything like that. And then if I pop this back on, there is also storage in the front of here and in the back of here. And there is a bit of storage on the top for the different feet that come in there. The last really handy thing about this machine is that it has automatic tension. So it has an auto setting, so you really shouldn't need to be adjusting it too much unless you're kind of sewing the extreme, so with a really thick top thread or going through kind of multiple layers of leather or denim or something like that. So let's have a look at what comes with the machine. So firstly, you'll have the standard foot that is on the machine already, a zip or piping foot, a rolled hem foot, one for blind hems, overcasting, two clear view feet, one closed toe, one open toe, a foot for sewing on buttons, as well as the one-step buttonhole foot and a stabilising plate. You've also got a 1/4 inch foot, Janome's even feed foot, which is a walking foot system, and then a couple of different options for Freemotion, so the kind of traditional darning foot, and then there's also a convertible Freemotion foot. So you've got a closed toe on there at the moment, and then you can change that to an open toe or another toe for either thread painting or echo quilting. And a range of accessories, including the straight stitch needle plate and a handy quilting guide. And an instruction book, a handy instructional DVD, your foot control power lead, and also a knee lift, and that just slots into the front of the machine here. It also comes with an extension table, and that sits on the end of here. I will use this for some of the sewing, so you'll get to see that in action. And then lastly, it comes with what Janome call a semi-rigid cover. So this has got cardboard in it and then a canvas underneath. And there's a really big pocket inside there for you to store some of the accessories as well. So let's have a look at how the machine threads, and we'll do some sewing, and I'll show you its capabilities and some of the different feet and things that come with it. So there's a numbered threading guide on the machine to assist you every time you thread the needle, but it's very easy to do. So you just want to pop the spool on the pin and put the cap on the end. Whoops. Grab the end of the thread. And then you go in number 1, around number 2, down and around number 3, in the take-up lever number 4, number 5 is this guide just here, and then the last one is always the guide just above the needle. So the built-in needle threader is here. You need to make sure the needle is in the right place every time. Really simple to do. This button, press it once, your needle will go down, press it the second time and the needle comes up, and that's now in the right position to bring the needle threader down, lay the thread in, draw it back up, and then there's your loop of thread to just pull through. And that's the top threaded. So for the bobbin, you just want to push that to the right and the cover pops up. When you first get the machine, there will be an empty bobbin in there for you. And the tail of thread on your full bobbin needs to be on the left. So you just want to drop that in, and then you're taking it under this lip here, but what it's actually doing is putting it through this little piece here, which is what sets the tension on your bobbin. So it's a good idea to put your finger on it to stop it spinning, so you're threading with some tension there. And then you just go around this easy set. So again, it's numbered, so you've got number 1 going around there, number 2, and there's just a little cutter there that you can cut it off. Pop the cover back on, and that's it, you're ready to sew. There is no need to draw up the bobbin thread. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. When you first switch the machine on, it'll always default to a standard straight stitch, which is stitch number 1. Now, because there's so many stitches on this machine, they are separated into modes, which are kind of like folders, I guess, but they're just called modes. So you've got mode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it'll always be in mode 1, that's shown here, the mode, and stitch number 1, which is your standard straight stitch. Because it's computerized, it will default to a standard width, which is easily adjustable, as you've just seen, and a standard length. So when you're on a straight stitch, all the width is going to do is move your needle position. So you can see as I'm adjusting that, the needle is moving. And they're really quite small increments on this machine, 0.1 of a millimetre, and that's really great for when you're sewing something quite delicate, or if you're putting in a zip or piping and you can get the needle really close to the teeth or the piping casing, whichever you want. So it's a 9mm stitch width on this machine, so the middle position is obviously 4.5. And then the length, again, you're just going up and down if you want to, but as you go through the stitches it does preset a default. So let's sew out a standard straight stitch on some cotton that I've got here. So I just drop the presser foot, drop the needle down, and I'm not using the foot pedal, I'm using the start stop button. And then to reverse, I just keep my finger on it and go back, and then come forward again. So at the moment I'm on the slow speed, so if you had the foot pedal plugged in at this point, you could put your foot flat to the floor and it's not going to go any faster than this, because this acts as a speed limiter as well. So that's the slow, and we move up to midway and then full speed. Keep your finger on the start stop button and you can see it slows right down to a more manageable speed, so you can just stop. Do your reverse again to secure those, and then come forward. If you are using the foot pedal, this start stop button doesn't work, so it is up to you, as you would traditionally, to start and stop sewing with the foot pedal. So I have finished sewing, so I'm now going to trim the thread, so that's the scissor button. So you just press that one just once and it raises the needle, and a little blade comes out inside and trims both the top and bottom thread. So you can lift the foot and just simply take your work out, and that's your nice, neat, consistent straight stitch. That's the top and that's underneath. There is a second way to secure these ends. I'm just going to snip that thread off a minute so it doesn't get in the way. There you go. So instead of doing the reverse, which sometimes can be quite bulky if you're doing any decorative or finishing work or top stitching, and that's this button here, which is called a locking stitch. So instead of reversing, it's just going to sew 3 stitches on the spot. I'm just going to go back down to midway. So you can see the fabric's not really moving and it's just sewn 3 stitches, so that's secure now. You can then carry on with your seam. And then you can press that one when you want to stop, it will stop sewing and do the 3 stitches on the spot. And then there you go. You can see the ends are much neater than when you do your reversing, and they're still really secure. Have a check, they're not going anywhere. Now this button also has a second function, and that's called a pattern end. And so it is as the name suggests. So when you're sewing out one of the decorative stitches or the more pictorial stitches, like these tulips here for instance, you can press this button when you're nearing the end and it will finish a whole pattern before it stops sewing. So I'll show you what I mean. So to select this stitch, I need to go into mode 2. And to do that, you've got a button here called mode, and it will toggle down here. So at the moment it's in number 1. If I press it once, I'm now in number 2. So we're now in this mode here. And I want stitch number 49. So I just very simply press 49, and then you can see there's a tulip here. So I'm just going to drop the needle in and start sewing. So you could see that time when I pressed that locking stitch button, it didn't stop sewing straight away. And that's because it was finishing a complete tulip, in this instance, before it stopped sewing. So it just helps to keep you neat when you're sewing these decorative stitches and you're not guessing at where you're going to stop and then kind of having half a flower. Now you can also mirror image these decorative stitches. So at the moment those tulips have stitched out that way. If you wanted to flip them so that they go the other way, it is just this mirror stitch button here. So if I sew these again now, they'll be in the opposite direction. And again, I use the lock and stitch button to finish the complete pattern. And there you can see they're in the opposite direction to the original ones. So to program the fonts to, I don't know, personalise something or make a quilt label, whatever you want to do with it, they are stitches that you select like any other stitches. So you've got mode 3 is your sort of standard alphabet, uppercase, lowercase. You've then got European letters, and that one that I can't pronounce, and then some larger capital ones over here. So let's do a standard font. So we'll go to mode 3, and we'll just type out the word Janome. So a capital J is stitch number 20. So I'm just going to go 20. If I select another one now, so if I wanted the lowercase a, it would just switch to a lowercase a. I don't want that. I want it to memorise the J and carry on moving along for my letters. So you type your first one in and then you press M for memory, and you can see I've now got a cursor waiting for the next letter. So a lowercase a is 37, and then memory, N is 50, O is 51, M is 49, always helps if you sing, and then E is 41. And memory. If you want to go back and check your spelling, you can just go along these ones here, and I can see that that's correct. There are spaces down here, a small, a medium and large. You would just select that stitch number, and you can carry on and, you know, add a sentence, put a name and a date. Like I say, put some decorative stitches in, add a sequence of anything. Don't quote me, but I think there's a limit of characters of about 30, but it'll soon beep at you if you can't put any more in. So let's stitch this out. And there's the word Janome. Now these link stitches can be removed if you want to. Each letter is secured, so you're not going to unravel anything there at all, or you can just leave them. That looks perfectly fine. To sew a one-step buttonhole, we need the one-step buttonhole foot. Oops, let's get rid of that thread. Now this stabilising plate, you only need to use this if you're sewing a buttonhole on something quite thick. So if you're doing like a wool jacket and you're coming down the placket, you would pop the material in underneath there and then slop the foot over the top, and then that helps to keep the fabric stable while it's sewing the buttonhole. But I'm just going to be sewing on some cotton, so I don't need the plate. This looks like a bit of a contraption, but it's actually very easy to use. So you just slide the back out, pop your button in, and then clamp it down, and then that determines the size of your buttonhole. So next we need to snap it on to this ankle here. So these come off just with a push, and that drops off. Whoops. I'm just going to bring the thread this way, and then I'm just going to use the extra lift to get this foot in underneath. And that just snaps on like that. The next thing you want to do is get this needle thread in under the buttonhole foot. And the easiest way to do that is to pop some fabric underneath, drop the needle down and back up again, and then gently pull your fabric out, and then you can grab it and pull it through. And that's it under. I'm just going to cut that excess off. And then lastly over here, well actually I'll show you how to select it on the screen first, and then that will prompt you. So you've got a few different buttonhole styles here. We're sewing with cotton, so I'm just going to do the standard buttonhole. Obviously these are different types depending on the fabric that you're using. So I need to go back into mode 1 and stitch number 23. So I'm going to go down to mode 4, 5, 6 and then back up to 1, and then stitch number 23. Now you can see here it's telling me to use foot R, which is this buttonhole foot, and then there's this little symbol here, and that's to remind you that you need to bring the sensor down, which is just behind the needle threader, and you want to bring that all the way down until it kind of clicks and won't go any further. And then you might just want to pop a mark on your fabric of where you want your buttonhole to start, and it's going to sew it in that direction. You can then line that mark up in the little window in the front of the foot. So then pop your fabric in underneath, drop your presser foot, pop your needle in, and away you go. So it beeps to let you know it's done, and there's your nice neat one-step buttonhole, nice and easy, and that's the underneath. So let's pop the sensor back up and take this buttonhole foot back off. We'll take a look at some different types of fabric now. So I'm going to pop this needle out. That's quite tight because it's straight from the factory, so just get a screwdriver. This is my screwdriver, so it might not come with one exactly like this, but there will be one very similar. And I'm just going to pop a jersey needle in, flat to the back, as far up as you can go. And then just do a last quarter turn with the screwdriver. Thread the needle. And I will just pop this presser foot back on. There we go. So I've got some stretch material here, some jersey material. So I know, having sewn with this material before, the best stitch to use is the triple straight stitch. And that is number 9 in mode 1, I can see. So I'm already in mode 1, so I'm just going to choose number 9. Prompting me to go back to foot A, and there's no sensor, so I've already put that back up and I've changed the foot. Drop that in, got a curly bit. Now when you reverse on this one, it will do a locking stitch for you as standard. Secure the end of that, and look how beautifully that's coped with that. The stitch is sitting lovely and flat, it's very neat and consistent, there's no skip stitches, and you can stretch the fabric along with the stitch. So move on to some thicker type of fabric. Let's take out the jersey needle and pop in, whoops, a denim needle. And you kind of need to do this. Don't underestimate how the right needle for the job can make a huge amount of difference, not only to get the best out of the machine, but also to get the best results on your projects. So there's no stretch in this fabric whatsoever, it's just thicker than what we've been working with. So I'm going to go back to the standard straight stitch, which is stitch number 1, and I'm going to increase the stitch length just slightly, and then I just pop it under, drop the needle. And that's a breeze for this machine, no problem whatsoever. So let's double that over and go through 4 layers. I'm just going to slow it down a tiny little bit just to give it a hand to go through. No problem at all there. I wasn't pushing or pulling the fabric, nothing at all, and the seam is really secure. So let's double it over once more and go through 8 layers. And this time, because it's quite thick now, I'm going to increase the stitch length again, and I'm just going to slacken off the pressure that is on the presser foot, and that's this dial on the top here. Just by 1. That's enough just to help it feed consistently and not get stuck on anything. And there you go, 8 layers, still nice and neat, and the seam is really secure. So when it comes to patchwork and quilting, I have got a 1/4 inch foot here to do the patchwork piecing. So I'm just going to snap that off. I'm going to take the jeans needle out and pop the standard one back in. There we go. And I'm going to pop the 1/4 inch on, thread the needle, cut that off, and that's that. Okay, so I've got 2 5-inch squares here that we're just going to sew together with a 1/4 inch seam. So there is a stitch already programmed in here. So you've got P for piecing, and this is the 1/4 inch. So in mode 1, which we're still in, and stitch number 6. So I can choose 6 number stitch, and that 6 number stitch, choose stitch number 6. Try and say that when you're drunk. Anyway, so that now puts the needle in the right position for if we're lining the fabric up with the guide here. So the edge of the fabric goes against the guide, and that's going to sew a consistent 1/4 inch seam all the way along. We just need to make sure we're running the fabric just touching the end of that guide. There you go. You can see how it's a consistent distance from the edge. And that helps to get your piecing accurate. It's also really good if you're doing any sort of top stitching or edge stitching, so you know that you're keeping a consistent distance. If you go around the top of a bag or something, you know, when you come back to rejoin your first part of stitching, it's going to sit exactly on top and not look messy. So with quilting, we have the walking foot, so let's pop that on. So for this one, we've got to take the whole ankle off. And as I say, this foot is Janome's Acufeed foot, and it slots in the back of the machine, just in there, and then sits on the front. I'll just undo that a bit. There we go, and screws in there. There we go. I'll just do a last turn. Make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And the teeth on the bottom of this interlock with the teeth underneath. Now traditionally it's used for quilting so that you don't get a shift in your layers between the top and the bottom, but it is really useful for tricky fabrics as well, fabrics that slip and shift. Some jersey fabrics sometimes, if it's got a lot more stretch than this, it can end up being a little bit wavy. This will stop that from happening. So I'm just going to pop the pressure back to normal. That's the presser foot pressure. And then let's do a nice wavy stitch here. That one's quite popular. So I'll go to mode 2, and that happens to be stitch number 1. Drop your needle in. And if you've ever used a traditional walking foot, you can hear how much quieter this is. It's not clacking with the motion of the needle going up and down, and that again is because it's driven from the motor of the machine. It's a lot more stable. And that's a nice neat quilting stitch there. There's no shift in the top and bottom layer. Not that you can really tell because I've cut it really badly, but it's nice and neat on the bottom as well. And then if you wanted to do symmetrical rows of these, you can use the quilting guide. So this slots into the foot just there. And say if you wanted them 1 inch apart, you can use your markings on the needle plate to put this guide at 1 inch. And then what you want to do is watch where this goes and run it down through the middle of the stitch. So if I go about there, and make a start. And you can see you've got a consistent inch apart all the way down. And that guide is adjustable, so you can have it however close or however far apart, obviously to the length of that. Although as an optional accessory, Janome do ones that are longer, both for the right and the left side as well. But that's a really useful tool that comes with the machine. Now lastly, let's take a look at some Freemotion. So I'll take that guide out a minute, take this off. Now I like to use the straight stitch needle plate when I'm doing Freemotion. So I'm going to pop that off. Oh, that popped up like toast. So the difference between the two is this is what's called a standard plate. So you've got your wide 9mm hole there, so you can sew all the stitches that there are available on the machine on that. But sometimes when you're doing a straight stitch and you want very neat results, if something were to jam up, it can drag the fabric down in underneath and make a bit of a mess. So the straight stitch plate just has 3 smaller holes for if you're sewing in the left, centre or right position to stop that fabric being pulled down underneath. So if I pop that on, you just put the 2 lugs in and then there's a circle here, you just push that down and that's it. Now the machine knows that we have that plate on. You can see it's now changed to 01S. So the only stitches we can choose from now are these in this red box. And that's a safety feature, because if we accidentally had this on and chose the stitch that we were just doing, for instance, the needle is going to hit the needle plate because there's no hole for it to go down through and break the needle, which is not what we want. So I'm going to use the convertible Freemotion foot that comes with the machine. And I've got the closed toe on there currently. Just give that a final turn. I'm going to move that out of the way a second. I'm going to grab the extension table. Look how much more room that you have. And I like to have room when I'm doing Freemotion. It's something I'm still learning, but we all have our own knack and our own way of doing things. So for this to line up with the hole correctly, I need to be in the left position, and that is stitch number 4. So I can just press, 0, 4, and then I'm in the left position. You can see the needle has moved across. So I'm lined up with the hole. So I'm going to pop my fabric underneath and I'm going to drop the presser foot. Now this foot is static, it doesn't hop, and I can see that's clamping my fabric too much, I can't move it. So I'm just going to turn this cog to raise that little foot up. Now I can move that quite nicely. And the reason I like this one rather than the hop one is because it keeps the fabric there. Sometimes when it's hopping, it can ever so gently just pull the fabric up like that, and you end up with eyelashes on the back and longer stitches and it all looking a bit unneat on the top. So I'm going to draw up my bobbin thread. I don't want to start. What am I going to attempt to do? Let's go there. Draw my bobbin thread up. Drop the needle back in. Let's go about there and then make a start. I like to stop at that point and just pull these through and snip them off. I just go a little bit slower for me and then carry on. Do, you get the idea. And there's your Freemotion stitches. Also nice and neat underneath with no eyelashing. The tension is all really good. So this machine comes with a standard 2-year warranty that can be extended to 5 years if you want to do that, and there's a card that will come in the box that talks you through all of that. And don't forget, we're here at the Sewing Studio as well. We try our best to know our machines inside out so that we can offer you support, help and advice, when you meet a problem or just need some technical help. So I hope this video has managed to demonstrate to you just what a fantastic machine the Janome 8200QCP is. It's so versatile for all-round sewing, lots of different projects or anything that you want to do. So if this is the right machine for you, head on over to our website. We keep good stocks of these and it could be with you in the next couple of days. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. We love to see what you've been creating, using techniques learned from our tutorials and using materials purchased from us. We also love to inspire other makers within our community by showing what's possible via our email newsletter and on social media. So if you'd like us to showcase your beautiful works of art, then send it to us using the contact details in the description below or tag us on any of your socials.